Hello, hello, hello. It's James here. Today I'm going to be doing some coding, maybe until midnight. I don't know how far I'll go, but let's see. Today I'm just going to be working on Navi, so I'm going to be adding a few features, hopefully, or really just cleaning up a few little things before I release the next version, and then I'm going to call it quit. Well, I'm not going to call it quits on Navi, but I'm going to work on some other things like new content for a while. So I've just got to finish a few things off, and yeah, I'm going to be doing that on the stream today. So yeah, here's my roadmap. I've just got a list of things to do, and I'm going to hopefully knock off a few of them. And yeah, let's just see how far I get. So first, what do we have? We have create, index, and resolve functions. Okay, so one of the things with Navi, so Navi is my router. If you haven't seen it, I'll just give you a little bit of background on what I'm doing. So Navi is this routing library for React, and currently it gives you these mount and route and these functions to define your routes. So if you have an application, then you can define a bunch of routes using mount. You assign them to paths, and then you pass in these route objects, which is great. I mean, I like this way of doing it, but a lot of people seem to prefer they prefer to have components instead. So if you have a look at React Router, then you'll see they have a different way of defining routes. Let me just bring it up. Yeah, so in React Router, you define your routes using these route elements and using a router. So it's a little bit different, basically. And I want to actually support that way of doing it as well, because I mean, as much as I like this, it's important to be able to do it the way people want to do it, and that seems to be those route elements. So one of the things I need to do in order to make that work is to move some of these functions out of, or to different places, because at the moment Navi supports like an index function, which allows you to get all of the routes in a website, and it supports resolve, which allows you to find the routing information for a URL. But that can't really be done with the React Router style. So I want to move these to an external place or a different place, so that you know, people don't expect them to work when you're defining routes using the React Router style. So where was I? Now I've okay, yeah, that's a tweet I've planned. So crawler. Okay, so I think I was at crawler. So this is basically a tool which can be used to crawl different. It's can be used to build an index, or to crawl and create an index of all the different URLs on the site. I don't remember where the hell I am. So maybe what I should do. Do I even have a crawl function yet? Okay, here we go. I'm making a crawl function. And I think I need some tests. So at the moment, we've got this router, and it has a site map function, which builds site maps. But instead of doing it this way, we want to use a crawl function now. Okay, I'm probably not making any sense. I'm just gonna do some code, and let's see how we go. So I might shut up for a bit. Right, so I think the way I'm gonna do this, I don't need to do this straight away. I've already set it up to pass. Okay, so in Navi, everything is, all of these are matches, they're called, and I've already set it up to pass through this crawler. And from memory, I've got the tests working while passing through that crawler. Let's just check. Gotta remember where I am. Oh, no, I haven't got all the tests working, but what's not working? Extract. So this is because I removed some there's a new feature I was going to add, and then I realized it's not going to work with those route elements either, so I've just removed it. in favor of something else which I also would like to add if I have time today. Route map does not include views. So that's something, I think I can just remove that task because I decided not to have that feature anymore. So where is it? Does not include views. This is like a not very well documented feature, if it was documented at all. And it was just made things confusing because, yeah, I can just remove that. That's okay. I should put this onto watch mode. Actually, I think it's like this. Let's see how this is going. I'm back. Okay, so I've removed request.memorize, and that's why this is failing. Navigating to a redirect away from the current URL and then navigating back remembers the effects. But again, I've removed effects, so that's kind of expected, and I'm just leaving this here for when I re-add it as something different. Navigating to exactly the current URL defaults to replace it instead of push. Now, I would have thought that one would have been working, so I'm going to check why that's not working. And matches definitely should have access to method, body, and header. So I want to see why this one's not working either. So browser navigation.test 6923. Let's have a look. Browser navigation.test 6923. Why is this not working? It could be that I've like changed this. So okay, so navigate, passing through body on navigate. Yeah, this should work, and it's not working. That sucks. Okay, another thing I can do though is I can fix this while I'm here. Navigate, this function actually returns a promise to the new route object, so I can get rid of that and do this instead. I can just await that route. It's another recent change, but that's not going to fix the problem. Is there a way, if anyone is watching, there's one person watching, hi, hi, yeah, I gotta look at the camera, I'm getting used to this still. I wonder if there's a way to make it only rerun the test that's like applicable instead of rerunning them all, because it takes a while, but anyway. Method of undefined, body of undefined. So there's no views. Huh. Why are there no views? There should be views. Console.log. Let's take a look at what the view. I mean, I know the views are undefined, so let's take a look at the route that's being returned. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run tests. Yeah, I'm just going to. There is a way of only watching that test. It's to do this, and I think I could actually do that from within the jest command line. I mean, from this. Okay, so. Huh? Error. Oh, I see what's happening. Is that I've removed this, and well, okay. So these aren't working either because. Oh, it's you, Rowan. Hi, Rowan. Yeah, okay, so these aren't working because for anyone watching later, Rowan is my brother. So yeah, he's watching me program from the other side of the world. It's kind of cool how that works. So serialize effector history doesn't exist anymore. And let's just remove this. And remove this, and that's gonna make these other two tests which don't rely on that work. Well, the other ones that do rely on it don't work, but they didn't work anyway. So hopefully this is 4 failed. I think that's what we were expecting. Memorize. Alright, yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, remove that console log because it's going to mess up my nice clean test output. And now I should only have 4 failing, and there are ones I expect to fail right at the moment. Channel closed. What the hell is that? Yep. Just taking. Okay. Cool. All good. All good. So, I think what I need to do is actually implement this crawl function. And in order to do that, I am going to need to do basically what's already happening in router.ts. Because in router.ts I've got this resolve sitemap function. And I'm not going to be using resolve sitemap anymore. I'm going to be using something else. Okay, so let's... Actually, it's probably closer to create observable. So here what we do is... You know what? I can actually probably use create observable. And yeah, I think I can use create observable and just have to add some configuration. Router map options. So if I add like a crawler, I think they're called crawlers. Yeah, I can add a crawler as a possible option to this. Video output low, says YouTube. Not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Does that mean I need like a new computer? Because I have these like CPU bars down the bottom. So you can you see them? Oh look, see it says that there's still a little bit of spare, so I don't know why it's telling me that video output is low, but never mind. I'm just gonna keep streaming, and I'm sorry about the buffering. So, where was I? Right, crawler. So I'm adding an option to pass in a crawler. Just imported crawler. Does crawler have any generics? Nope. Cool. So if I can pass in a crawler, then when I do create at some point, I think this might be it here. Match against path name. No, that's not it. So I need to create a matcher at some point, I think. Matcher generator. Where does matcher generator come from? Don't tell me that's passed in, because that would be silly. Oh no, here we go. So when I do this, pass in like a null child, or undefined, I think works for the moment. I'm gonna fix that later, but then I can pass in, I think the second option should be matcher. I mean, not matcher, crawler. Matcher is child to. Oh, I see. That's different. So I only pass in the child there, and then when I call matcher generator, that's when I pass in request and chunk list observable. That's where I want to be looking. Matcher generator. Ah, here we go. This is where I want to be passing it in. So where did I add that crawler? Okay, router map options. Instead of doing that, I want to add this to router resolve options. Because router resolve create observable doesn't... Yeah, it returns a chunk list. Sorry, this probably doesn't make any sense, but unless you've been like looking through the Navi code base. But okay, so a chunk list is a list of basically arbitrary pieces of data, so I can change that into whatever I like down the track. Whereas resolve returns a route. R is for route, and that's another thing I've got to change. So I've got to make it return a route instead of this generic R. But because it returns a chunk list, I can process it into whatever I want. So yeah. So I'm going to remove this from router map options, which I'm going to get rid of, to router resolve options, which means that now when I pass in a URL, I can also pass in a crawler, which will let it basically crawl through all of the URLs on the page and build like a site map kind of thing. So create observable receives these router resolve options and then passes them on to chunk list observable. So I want to pass in a crawler to chunk list observable as well, which is it's options.crawler. Then I'm going to have to update chunk list observable to actually take that. So crawler, so chunk list observable. What a name, hey! It's funny actually saying it instead of just reading it and writing it. But okay, so chunk list observable takes a crawler, and what does it do? It passes it in if it exists. It takes a crawler or null actually, and if it exists, or even if it doesn't exist, it passes it into match a generator, which I hope I only call once, because I'm just creating that generator. Yep, all good. So this could be crawling is false unless options.crawler is okay. So so here's an interesting thing. See, I've been asked this question before. Is see this little exclamation mark? What does that do? Well, exclamation mark, one exclamation mark, as you know. So let me go back here. And one exclamation mark will turn anything into the negative of anything, which is probably it's going to be false. So if options.crawler is true, then this will be false. If it's if options.crawler doesn't exist, then it'll be true. So if you put another one out the front, you get false, or I mean, if this is true, then, or if this has a value, then it'll be true. If it doesn't have a value, then it'll be false. So it's like the opposite of this. Whereas if you have any of these, then crawler will be a crawler instead of true or false. So it forces it into a boolean. Okay. So crawling is true if options.crawler is true. Now options.crawler can be undefined, and this is expecting null if it's not there, so I can just do or null. There we go. Okay, that's nice and easy. So now create observable does both of those. So now I can make something like instead of we have resolve, and I can add, say, route. No, not route, crawl URL as the base URL. I haven't thought this through, because I don't just want to be able to pass in a crawler. I want to be able to pass in like all this stuff. Actually, no, I can make a crawler from crawl options. I can make a crawler from crawl options, so that's okay. In fact, I can make a router from all of that, I think. What do you need to create a router? I need context, routes, base name, and reducer. Now reducer I'm going to get rid of. So I only really need base name, optionally routes and context. Which I think I have here. I have context, I have, I should have routes, yep. I don't have base name, so let's just add base name, because that would be actually kind of useful to have. Base name is just a way of allowing you to put like change the root URL, I guess. You're getting an endless spinner. Well, no, I'm not setting up the stream. I'm supposedly streaming, but why isn't it why isn't it working? What if I get rid of my video capture device? Does that lower the load at all? Not really. What if I get rid of window capture? Does that lower it enough to get smooth streaming happening? Oh wow, that lowers it quite a bit. Still says video output low. Why is video output low? Is it my connection? Maybe I'm streaming too high. Oh, hi Ricard. Oh, but actually, like after turning all this stuff off, some of the layers off, it's gone green. Like YouTube has gone green. So I'm gonna keep going, and maybe the layer I had for my tablet so I could draw lines in the screen was taking up too much CPU. So I'm gonna give this a shot, and if it stops working, then let me know. So where was I? So crawl. So we're creating a crawl function. We need to create a router for the moment. I'm gonna get rid of router eventually, but how do I create a router? Create router. That's easy. Let router equals create router. Then I gotta pass in router options, which is routes base name. I'm putting them in alphabetical order because OCD or something. Context. Okay, so we got a router. Then we want a chunk list observable. No, chunk list. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what we want. So the router dot create observable. Then we pass in more stuff. So URL would be probably the root, because actually, why is that? Create observable. Oh, wrong file. Create observable. So URL descriptor. Doesn't let me pass in a string. Path name. Okay, so I think, geez, that should work. There we go. Yeah, so because we're building back like a map of all of the things on the site, I think that passing in slash is, or maybe base name, options.base name. Maybe this is the best way to do this. Maybe, I don't know. Well, I can write tests and see, I guess. Yeah, because I want to look through all of the URLs, unless root is passed in. I have to think about this more. Thinking on stream is not very interesting. Sorry, but yeah. So the root, maybe what I can do is I can add some comments instead of just thinking. So root is the root URL that you want to index from, or that you want to crawl from. So you want to, if you want to say crawl all of your articles, but you don't want to crawl the rest of the pages, then you might pass in a root string. So how would I put this? The bottommost URL whose pages you'd like to crawl. No, this could be a URL descriptor as well, I'm sure. URL descriptors are objects, strings are just strings. So, like, URL descriptors have path names and search and hash and all that stuff. I'm just going to say that should be crawled. I think that's good enough. Whereas base name, is a little different. Base name is basically removed. I think I've already got a decent description of base name somewhere else. If provided, this part of the URLs will be ignored. I'm just going to copy paste that. Routes is kind of obvious. Context, if you've used Navi elsewhere, is going to be obvious, so I can leave them. Predicate, expand pattern, I'll get to this later. Headers, hostname, all that stuff. So when we create an observable, what is the URL actually used for? It's basically used to... It's passed to each of the matches, so that the matches... The kind of idea is that you pass in the URL, and that so it knows, okay, I'm looking to see what data is associated with this URL. But if you're not trying to find what data is associated with a specific URL, but you're trying to find what data is like, or what the available URLs are, then it doesn't really make sense so much to be passing that in. You just want to pass in this root so that you can kind of ignore all the ones that are below that, I think. Maybe. You know what? I'm just going to pass. But yeah, it's kind of like pruning the tree. Base name? No, root. I'm going to do that. Okay, and what else do I need to pass in to create observable? So create observable has router resolve options. It has body, which I'm not going to allow at the moment. It's got headers and method and URL and crawler. Crawler is the one I'm really interested in. Headers I can probably pass in. You know, this should have hostname as well, honestly. Where was I? This should have hostname. Why does it not have hostname? Well, there we go. Because you're... okay. Oh, I see why it doesn't have hostname, because that's part of the URL. I've never used hostname, so... Headers are not part of the URL, so that's okay. Chunk, list, observable... No, before I do that, crawler is an object which I have to create. In fact, it's a function that follows this type signature, and that's what I'm going to use all of these to do, is to create that function. So what crawler does is it takes a pattern like this, and it creates more requests. So it's kind of saying, okay, well, I'm at this URL, what else do we need to crawl? And it creates a bunch of requests which are going to be crawled. So predicate is basically a way of saying, okay, I found this pattern, do we want to crawl it or not? So if options.predicate, actually let's just always have a predicate. So predicate equals options.predicate, or empty function that always returns true. So if predicate pattern should... Oh, I need to create a request from that. Is this the parent request, or is it the request that we're making? So that's where maybe this with crawler thing comes in. Because it allows us to create requests. I'm going to say this is parent request. So I'm going to have to actually add this pattern onto that parent request. So that request equals, requests are just plain objects, so I can make a clone of it doing that way using the ... thing, and then I can, I think, change the URL, I can add pattern onto the URL. So mount path probably changes. So the way I usually create requests is I use this match against path name thing. But yeah, how do we do it? So these are the things we change. Mount path, path URL. Mount path has the new pattern kind of joined into it. Path has unmatched path is the remaining part, and URL has the remaining part too. I don't think I'm gonna put like, I mean I could, so actually I think I need to run before I do predicate. I need to do like expand pattern first, because what that does is it takes a pattern and it turns into more patterns. That's nice and easy. This needs to be an async function. So patterns equals, and let's make an expand patterns function too. So expand pattern equals options.expand pattern, or I guess pattern string to pattern. There we go. And I guess I should probably await this because this could be a promise. So we got our patterns, then we want to create new requests for each of those patterns. So requests equals patterns dot map pattern to. Now these shouldn't actually be patterns. These should be probably well, path names, but never mind. So we copy the parent request, and then we change mount path, and URL. So the mount path is doesn't make as much sense when we're crawling, but it's where the matcher is mounted. So basically, we want to just join that pattern on, like we do here. Join. I have to import from URL tools. Request.mountPath is the parent request's mount path, and then matched path name is actually a pattern in this case, or this, because we always need a mount path. So I think a better place to put that would be there. An unmatched path. This is a little bit trickier because well, there is no unmatched path because we don't have like a full URL we're looking for. We're just, yeah. Unmatched path. Let's just call it an empty string, I guess. Why is patterns red? Red squiggly line. Object is possibly undefined. Well, yeah, I guess it is. There we go. Okay, so we got requests, and then what we want to do is so we've got patterns.map, and then let's do filter. .filter predicate. Okay, so now we just got the request we want to make. And what is crawler? Crawler is a map from pattern and parent request to crawl item. It's not to request, it's the crawl item. What the hell is a crawl item? A crawl item is the parts of a request that can be kind of merged in to... I see, because instead of saying you can return the whole request, because you might want to define these crawler functions yourself, I'm saying we can just return the parts that get changed, I guess. So I guess this is kind of like a crawl item, really, but so what we don't want to actually make requests here. We want to make crawl items. And well, that's weird. So maybe instead of predicate on Navi request, you do predicate on crawl item. Maybe. Or maybe we just make the. You know what? I think crawl item is like a subset of request. Yeah, maybe. Need to think more. Or maybe instead of thinking, I'm just gonna keep doing this, and if it doesn't work or the tests fail, I can come back and fix it. So yeah, so and then let's just call this a crawler. And TypeScript says it works, so I guess this is a subset of request, and that's okay. Okay, but one thing I could change, I could like extract just the parts that I want. Yeah, I think that's fine. So I've got this crawler, we're passing in, got chunk list observable, and then the last thing I got to do is take that list of chunks and turn it into a list of strings, because that's what crawling is. It's just a list of URLs, right? So I can. I'll create observable actually returns an observable. Oh, duh. And get page route promise. Create promise from observable. Where does that come from? That sounds useful. So I'm gonna import this. Why are some of the, TypeScript has used, there's a better way to do this. TypeScript uses double quotes on by default, but I like single quotes. There we go. Prettier is amazing. Okay, so this is red because I haven't returned anything yet. Now I want to turn this observable into a promise. So what's that thing I just imported called? Create promise from observable. So that just waits till the observable sends done, because if you have a look at an observable, you can like send complete. So it waits till it sends complete, and then it resolves the promise. So chunk list equals await create promise from observable chunk list observable. Why is this not working? Because crawl is not an async function, it's part of it. So that makes await work. Why is chunk list observable not working? This could be undefined. Well, let's just say it's not undefined. Because if you, in TypeScript, if you put a bang after chunk list or after anything, it just says, yeah, this is not defined. Cool. So now we want to turn a chunk list into a list of strings. So return chunk list dot map chunk. Actually, instead of map, let's first do filter. Chunk dot type equals index, because that just basically is a, when you pass in a crawler, it will add index chunks for every URL that it finds. And then dot map chunk to chunk dot URL dot href. Hey, the types pass. Cool. So this is my crawl function. It takes a bunch of options, and it supposedly, theoretically, returns a list of the available URLs as long as as long as the matcher understands what this crawler is, and that's the problem at the moment. The matcher doesn't understand that yet, so I've got to actually fix that. I've got to go into, okay, so there's two things I've got to do. One is I've got to make it so it respects that root URL, right? Because I've got this root URL which I'm passing in here. And that kind of goes in the request object. Oh, this isn't going to work then. Let's do this instead. No. Basically, we want to match until we get to the root, and then we want to index. I think this is okay, because we're passing in the crawler, but we don't actually have to like change these requests this way here. I mean, we can do that. Yeah, okay. Let's see. So yep, I think this works. So I want to go to mount. Mount receives a crawler. And it, well, basically, if the crawler, okay, so if there is any part of the thing remaining, then we crawl. If there's any part of the thing that remaining, the URL remaining that we haven't matched yet, then we keep matching, and otherwise we start crawling. That lets us handle the root. So I'm gonna think about this a bit, but that's okay because no one's watching right now. So if anyone comes back later, you can probably. It says the video is unavailable. Is that true? Is the video unavailable? And it says stream health. I don't get this. Is it working? Oh, it says it is working. Okay. Hello. So yeah, so if anyone watches this later, if I don't delete the video, then I'm just gonna think a little bit so you can skip through to when I'm not thinking, I guess. figure out what to do with this crawler, I guess. I'm just gonna fix something here. So what am I going to do with the crawler? I think match against path name request. So basically, if request dot URL is empty, or if it's just a slash, then I want to start crawling. I don't know if it's .url or if it's path name path. I think that's documented in here. Contains the unmatched part of the URL. Yeah, so that's the reason it's not unmatched path, is because this is what Express calls it. So I just tried to keep it the same as Express. Request.path equals this, then we will have a special thing where no, and if crawler. So if we've got a crawler and we haven't got anything unmatched, then we want to basically create a list of, we want to have a special case. Now, I think even this could probably go. No, but yeah, okay, no, that part can stay. If there is no unmatched path remaining, then so what we usually do from this mount thing is we find the one child matcher, which, well, matches the path, and we pass through the request to that. But instead of doing that, we want to have a look at all of the child matches. We want to create requests for each of them, and we want to add all of those results to the output chunks. And probably want to add like an index chunk as well, so we can check what's been indexed, I guess. And we probably want to add a amount chunk too. And then basically we just, yeah, I think you can like reconstruct a tree from that. So create requests for all mappings and call those matches. So first part is create requests for all mappings. So requests equals mappings dot map. I wish we had a flat map, but we don't. So I'm gonna create flat map. I'm gonna go to the bottom. Function flat map takes. Actually, I don't know if I'm gonna create flat map because I think I got to deal with like async functions too, and it might be easier to just do it this way. So mapping. So we got a pattern inside of mapping. That's the thing that it's kind of mapped to, and we've got the parent request, and that's where we use this indexer. Not indexer, that's what I was calling it for, crawler. pass in a pattern, and we pass in a parent request, which I think is just a request. And so it's possibly null, but it's not possibly null because this is one of those TypeScript idiosyncrasies. Okay, so that makes an array of mappings. Now these could be promises, I think. If I pass it, so I have a question. I have a question about how promise.all works. So I'm gonna bring my JavaScript console over to that part of the screen so you can see it. So I'm not gonna do it for this page because it's gonna start throwing up errors everywhere. Let's do it for this page. So if I do promise.all with something which isn't a promise, yeah, okay, that works. So I don't have to like wrap things with promise.resolve to make it work. So yeah, I can do like promise.all because these are the crawler can return promises. Whoops. Right? Yeah. So this has all these crawl items. I don't want to have like ensure array because it can return something which is not an array. Actually, I think I don't need that because I'm going to use concat, which already basically does the same thing. So this isn't request, this is crawl items, which is either it's an array of crawl item or crawl item array. Yep. And I can do like this. Concat dot apply. I'm gonna say this should turn it into just an array of crawl items. Oh. This is apply doesn't really work very well with TypeScript. So I think though the way concat works, and I can check this. I can do it here again. So if you have like so we can pass in, say, arrays as well as individual items, and it'll just like concatenate them all together. Huh. Well, maybe not. God damn it. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Haha, whoops. Yeah. Alright, I think I could mix individual items and create list from array like code on non-object. That works. Oh, it's because I did apply instead of call. I'm silly. There we go. Yeah, so that works. So I can... Now I can't get typing if I use apply, but I can just create this concat function, which takes a bunch of t or t array, array of t. I don't know how to say that, and returns array of t. Args is declared. Yeah, okay. Okay, and then I just return basically what I just did in that window. There we go, it's nice and typed. then I can go up here and I can concat this. And that will give me an array of crawl items. I put an await here. And so, so mount matcher generator is a generator function. It's not an async function, so I can't just await. That throws a spanner in the works. Throws a spanner in the works indeed. So with these generators, what I can do is I can return like a busy promise or a busy chunk, and what Navi will do is well, you have to pass in a promise with the busy chunk, and then when the promise resolves, it'll call it again. But if I'm creating the promise new every single time the generator is called, then yeah, now. Now, of course, I don't have to because it's a generator, so you can kind of keep state as local variables because it's a generator, which is kind of cool. So crawl items promise. You know what? I'm gonna turn this into a function. So I've got one thing that I have to wait for. So it's a function of mappings and request and crawler. And this can be an async function, which calls this. So then I just need to pass in mapping. So this mapping crawler is a crawler, and request, our parent request, is a Navi request. Mapping, I would have thought was already imported, but apparently not. Why does map? Oh, because I see. Yeah, that's fine. And request is the wrong thing. Maybe there's like a syntax error here. Yeah, there is. Crawl items is well, crawl items promise is create crawl items promise of mappings crawler request. Crawler may be null, but it's not because I said if crawler. Oh shit, that's why. Thanks TypeScript. I needed the parentheses and I didn't notice. TypeScript to the rescue. So, okay. So I got this promise. And because it's a generator, what I can do is I can return that promise. I mean, I can yield that promise. I can say, okay, well, let's create a busy chunk. And put that promise in it and ask Navi to wait until the promise is done. And before we do that, let's do crawl item. This is crawl item, because that's what crawl item. Why is string a possibility? Huh, that's actually weirder than I expected. I thought this would return I thought this would be a promise to crawl items, but it's not. Okay, so this is where I should actually probably specify that. So did I get the error when I'm writing it instead of later on? Why is this? Who can return string? Who can return string? So crawler, what can you return? You can return a string. Well, that's the problem. No, a crawl item can be a string. A crawl item can be a string. I guess that kind of makes sense because you can say I want to crawl this URL. string being URL in this case. Where was I? But nonetheless, string or that is not assignable to crawl item, whatever, because, well, it should be. Maybe this concat function is not typed correctly. Because promise.all of, so this is a premise of string or crawl item this, right? Yeah. That's what I expected, and so this concat thing is not working how I expected. The types. Why is that? What's the T for concat? String, or it's this, or it's crawl item this. I wonder if I can just do this. Can I be like crawl item, concat crawl items? Nope. I have no idea what is going on. Oh well. Because it says T or array of T. So I should... So this is basically saying I can pass in an array. Oh no, each argument can be a crawl item or an array of crawl items. Theoretically. I see. Huh. Isn't TypeScript wonderful? It's this kind of tricky little bugs where it picks it up, and you would have been scratching your head for ages if it wasn't for the compiler telling you, you're wrong, fix it. Okay, so... Okay, I got a crawl items promise. I'm going to have my crawl items, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say crawl items promise dot then let's fill up crawl items. So as soon as crawl items promise is done, this crawl items thing is going to be true, and then what I can do is I can nope. I'm going to check out the available chunks. Easy chunk promise. Okay, so the way this should work is I can yield this. The way it should work. Cause I got an array of chunks. Okay. So I can yield the busy chunk, which is basically like saying await in the kind of Navi system. So once this yield returns, then crawl items should actually have a value in it. And so then I have everything I want to crawl, so it's just a matter of going through and crawling it. Now I have this concat matcher iterators. See, this is what I should have. This is a ... or something. Because what I need to do is now I have this like list of things I want to crawl. I have to actually make requests out of them. So I got to go crawl items dot map crawl item to parent requests, and then oh, haha, haha. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a bit of a hack to make this work. Just tell it. It does exist. It could be undefined, but it's not. Parent request is just request. What did I have earlier on? When I was in this, when I was in crawl, I had what did I have? This. So I can't assume that everyone is doing this. Yeah, okay, so yeah. I said like this is okay earlier on because the subset, but one of the types, so this URL in a request, this has a different meaning to here because it can't be a URL descriptor. And yeah, filter predicate. Okay, so why are we filtering by your Navi request? That's the real trick. Instead of filtering by Navi request, why don't we just filter by crawl item? That would make things make more sense, I think. The reason I'm doing it by Navi request is, I guess, because I wasn't thinking at the time. Okay, let's do this and filter predicate. Okay, so instead of requests, we want crawl items. And we just want these 5 things. We want body, which can come from the parent request. No, that's kind of dumb. Body should just be no. Headers, I think, can come from the parent request. Method. You know, I think if we're not specifically specifying something other than get, it should just be get. URL can be, this is where we want to do this joiny thing. URL is a string. Context should come from the parent request. This is one where that makes sense. And the rest is actually not necessary. There we go. And so here's the other thing. Crawl items really do need a URL, so that should not be optional. Things that want to be crawled, we need to know what you're crawling, so that makes sense. And we don't even need to like let crawl items equals pattern. But you know what? Let's do this because no, let's not. Let's do this, and then specify that crawler returns crawl. Well, I've already done that because I said this is a crawler, right? That says that yeah, it returns crawl items. Okay, cool, 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 cool. Okay, so create crawl items promise, which we're doing from our crawler. We've got these crawl items. We want to turn them into requests. So URL is empty, path is empty, and mount path is basically just the crawl item dot URL. Because crawl item could be a string. So I'm going to have to actually make sure that crawl item is not a string. You know what? allowing crawl item to be a string is actually just going to complicate everything at this level. Maybe it's possible at like a higher level or add some other thing, but let's just get rid of that. So let's make this an interface. That's nice. So this all still works because I hadn't even taken that into account until here. So now we know crawl item is not a string because it's an interface, and so that means I can do this. It's much simpler to convert crawl items into requests. Because crawl item dot URL is a string or URL descriptor, which is easy to turn into a URL descriptor using this create URL descriptor function. Then we can turn it back into a string using href. Cool. Okay, so we got a list of requests. And now we have a list of requests. We want to actually crawl them all, which basically means passing them to, well, creating matches for each of these child mappings and yeah, passing them in. Now here's a trick. We need to keep track of the matcher which is used to create each of these. Yep. That's tricky. So I can't just return a crawl items promise. I need to return like I need to return the matcher as like the mapping as well, I think. Let's just make it an array then. I don't know if array it is an array, it's kind of like a tuple. So how am I going to do this? I need to... So crawler can return multiple things. Okay, so let's just format this a little bit nicer so it's easier to see what's going on. Okay, so each of these mappings has a matcher, and we want to associate that matcher with all of the returned crawl items. So instead of returning a promise to an array of crawl items, we want to return like a promise to a pairing. This is tricky. We don't just want concat anymore because God damn it. How about I simplify this even further and I say instead of crawler being a crawl item or crawl item array or a promise to a crawl item or a promise to a crawl item array, let's just do this. Let's just make it as simple as possible at the core level, and then can always build helpers in the top to make it simpler down the track. Because this is like the most complicated case in terms of code, and so let's just do it this way. Okie dokie. So now, because this is always going to be returning an array, it should be possible to, it could be, I mean, a promise to an array. It's one of those things where it's easier to just do it than it is to like talk through it. Oh, I see. Yeah, so I'm gonna make this little helper to make tuples of x and y. Yeah, because when crawler returns a promise, so this then function is gonna return a promise. No, this then function takes like a function that maps the result to something else. Yeah. This is right. So now mappings is going to return tuples, but I can't just use the standard concat anymore. Why is... Yeah, it's a little bit tricky associating this matcher with all of the crawl items, but we'll get there. Okay, so now this should return an array of tuples, but matcher is going to be the first argument, the first one. I think. I was kind of hoping that would work. Create tuple with returns a function. Oh. Create tuples with returns a function. I had that name wrong. Promise to crawl item that then promise like of match crawl item or null or undefined. That sounds right. Tuples don't really work very well. They're always a pain in the ass to deal with. What's the type of this? I promise to match any crawl item array. That's what I was hoping it would be. So we're getting this list of promises. So mappings should be returning a list of those tuple promises, tuple arrays promises, whatever. Don't you hate it where you think it's gonna work and it doesn't? You think this looks right. Yeah, what's this? What's X? That's exactly what I thought it would be. So if I do this, it's a promise of, yep. And if I do this, that takes away the promise part. So now it's just an array of tuple arrays. Now, you'd think that if I passed all of that to concat, it would, you know, concatenate them. But, you know, I think I don't even need to apply anymore. Why can't this be passed in? Yeah, it can. Match any unequal. That looks correct. Ah, shit. No. It was that my return type was wrong. Oh, okay. Ended up figuring it out. So this returns a list of matches and associated crawl items. So let's just not call this create crawl items promise. Let's call this create crawl tuple promise. Okay. Then up here we'll call create crawl tuples promise. We get this promise of crawl tuples, which I should probably define somewhere. Crawl tuple equals this. So we get an array of crawl tuples. And then crawl tuples. This is not another request, it's a crawl tuple. Is it? Yeah, this is a crawl tuple, which means we have a matcher and a request. And we're turning them into what are we going to do with these? I think it might even be better just to do a loop, maybe. So let's go. Let's think about this, because this is a generator. So I could create lots of iterators. Yeah, if I yield in sequence, it's just like if you're awaiting in sequence, it means it can't do things in parallel. Not that it probably matters for just getting it working, but I mean, it's nice to have it working concurrently. Anyway, so we've got all these tuples that we need to crawl. We have the request we want to crawl, and we have the matcher that we want to throw the request at. And those matches are going to return lists of chunks, which will add on to the total list of chunks. So maybe what you should do first is create these iterators. Instead of creating a list of requests, let's create a list of iterators. Let's crawl tuples is matcher request. Do is create a request from the crawl item, because it wasn't a request, it was a crawl item, which I can do like so. Request then I can pass a request into the matcher to get an iterator. Along with the crawler. I've got to pass in a child too. Now, how do I do that down here? Do I even? I don't. And instead of calling create this manually, I do create matcher iterator, pass in the generator, then I pass in the request, then I pass in the crawler, then I pass in the pattern, which I don't have. So maybe instead of matcher I should do mapping. This should probably be mapping instead. So instead of passing the pattern, I am just going to pass, instead of passing the matcher, I'm just going to pass the mapping. Then I'm going to go up here. This is no longer a matcher, it's a mapping. So I can get the matcher by doing this, and I can get the pattern by doing this. Which just doesn't actually make as much sense as I thought, because it's not really a pattern we're crawling, it's an actual URL. Like that. That makes more sense. So it could have been a matcher after all, but I mean, this isn't gonna add any extra weight. So okay, matcher iterators. Got a list of matcher iterators. So this has basically done everything I need to actually get all of the data in the crawl. Now I just need to piece it together and output it. So how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? Sorry, just saw a comment on Twitter which I'm laughing at. Okay, so so I've got my iterators. Now the really easy way to do this would just be to like yield star all of them. But that's not going to work, because I actually need to put the, well, why wouldn't it work? Each of these iterators, what they do is they yield, I mean, I can show you what one of them does by doing this. So I can show myself as well, which is really helpful. You do next and it returns a list of chunks as an iterator result. Now what I want to do is I basically just want to concatenate all of these chunks together. And that gives me a list of basically all of the data within the entire routing tree, which is really useful if you want to say know all of the pages to render in a statically generated website. That's the whole reason I'm doing all of this. I mean, the whole reason I'm building this crawler thing as part of the router is for static rendering. So basically I want to concatenate all of these together along with a mount chunk. Just okay, so what I'm gonna do, this is like a special path. I'm gonna say chunks equals this, and then for each of these I am going to add, I've created the iterators, so actually, I think the problem is though that the whole reason that this is like an iterator instead of just a list is because of the whole, it can return a promise, a busy chunk like I've done here. So I need to put this in a loop like I've done down here. So here I've just got one child iterator. Basically what the difference is, so when I'm just doing normal routing I've got a single child iterator, whereas when I'm doing a crawl I've got like a bunch of child iterators, but I only need to create the iterators once in either case. So maybe one way of doing this, I mean in either case I need to create this mount chunk first. So basically in this case, instead of just looking at the single child iterator, I just want to look at a bunch of them, and I also want to in this case concatenate like an index chunk on, but I could do that anyway. So think I have an idea of how to do this. So in this case, instead of doing that, I'll do this. And in this case, I'll do this. I don't need to create chunks. And I don't need to do this. I just need to go child iterators equals that. Okay, so now when we're doing a normal match, we've got a single child iterator. When we're doing a crawl, we've got a bunch of child iterators. And instead of having a single child result, we have multiple child results. So I guess this becomes an array too. And I need to, instead of going not child result, well, you know what, child results is empty at the start, so if child iterators and not child results, or not child results dot done, we can't do that. I have to actually have a look through of them. Or not done. If any of them are not done, then for the ones that aren't done, we want to get the next. Child results. No, that doesn't work. There we go. So if it's not there, if it's not done. Before I was just doing that on a single child result, but now I want to do it on all of them. Okay, that works. You know what? I don't even need to do this because I'm going to effectively do that by filtering anyway. Okay, let child result equals child results I. Here's where I need to do it. Okay. Child chunks. Now I don't. What if there is no URL underneath that? Yeah, I need to actually put an index thing, so I need to know what the mapping is. So I can't just have this child iterators thing without. It gets tougher and tougher. I don't need to do this. Child matcher iterator. But I think I can do concat iterators. And then I can just create like almost an identity iterator. So this isn't that bad. So I can do this. Have I already got like an identity iterator thing? I got empty. I don't know if identity is the right word, but no, I don't even need to put this here. I can put it here where it's being used. Okay, yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding an extra. I'm basically adding some more metadata about what we're crawling. Because you need to know what we're crawling. Yeah, that's nice and simple. Yeah, so that gives us all the data chunks, and we've got all these iterators. There's no such thing as like a not found chunk really for doing a crawl, because if it's not found, then it just means you don't add it to the result. Of course, we're always going to have child chunks. I'm going to crawl anyway, so this path is not going to come up. So what I probably want is like, if not child chunks dot I'm not sure how to do this. So you got I mean, this is where the tests come in handy, because I can just test that it all still works. All the normal stuff still works. Yeah. It's tricky though. So we're almost there, and it's not even midnight yet, so we're going well. Checking my phone a little bit. Checking my phone and the Twitters, but here we go. Back to this. So I think this is like the last little bit I've got to do. So basically, this one can only really happen if we're not crawling. We don't want to push a not found chunk on if we're not if we're crawling. So that's easy. So child chunks is always going to exist. So basically just got to add all of the child chunks onto chunks. Is child chunks always going to exist? Child results is always going to exist. Okay, I see, yeah. So for result, let's just do an old loop. Loop through child results. Then child chunks, yes, is always going to exist. And let's do it this way. If not crawling and not found chunks, then push on a not found chunk. So for each of these results, we've got a child result equals child results. Yeah, that's nice and easy. Then child chunks equals child result and child result value. If not child chunks, if child chunks found chunks equals true, and then we pop the chunks onto that. Yep. So that's that looks like it should give me all the data I need, and then the only thing left would be for the crawler to I mean, we don't. Oh no, I've already done that. Wow. Actually, no, what I need to do, I can't just put out all of the index chunks, because some of them might not actually be pages. Some of them might be like intermediate values. So I want to put any index chunk out which comes after a mount chunk. With the same, I think you need to have like a depth. Oh shit, just hit the microphone. Yeah, I mean this, you almost need to have like a crawl depth as part of the request, so that we just so that I only return the, I mean I filter out, how do you do it? Because there's going to be different depths of pages. You just want to filter out it's tricky. I'm gonna have to think about this one, but I mean, at least in the meantime, this shouldn't break any of my tests. That's the kind of, yeah, it hasn't broken any tests. Mount still works exactly as you'd expect it to. So I've just got to add a little bit more code to finish off crawl, and that'll be basically, well, resolve it is easy enough. It's just moving stuff. Wow, I didn't even get one of my roadmap options done tonight. But yeah, this is a tricky bit of code. So, and once it's done, it's good, because that's basically the last thing which needs changing on Navi before the API can be pretty darn stable for quite a while. So that'll be good to have done. But I think I'm gonna call it a night, because it's like 11:30, and yeah. So thanks for watching. Yeah, and I will see you next time, maybe. And yeah, if you're interested in trying out what this this thing I'm building is, and just go to frontarm.com/navi. Navi for navigation, because it's yeah, it's got a ship's wheel. Yep, but yeah, give it a shot. It's great. I might be biased, but yeah. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Bye bye now.